welcome friends. Welcome to DLTGH. Today we are going to take the chapter A Triumph of Surgery by James Herriot. A Triumph of Surgery by James Herriot. Before you read, Tricky, a small dog, is pampered and overfed by his rich mistress. He falls seriously ill and his mistress consults a veterinary surgeon. Does he perform an operation? Does the dog recover? Learning objective. To be able to list the reasons why dogs are faithful friends, to analyze the drawbacks of misuse of money by rich people like Mr. Pumphrey, who overfed the pet and made him sick. Read and find out. What is Mrs. Pumphrey's worry about Tricky? What does she do to help him? Is she wise in this? Who does I refer to in this story? Mrs. Pumphrey is worried about Tricky because he has become listless and seems to have no energy. She thinks he must be suffering from malnutrition. She helps him by giving him some extra between meals to build him up, some malt and cod liver oil, and a bowl of Horlicks at night to make him sleep. She cannot resist giving him occasional cream cake and chocolate. No, she is not wise in doing this. Tricky is a very greedy dog, and the overfeeding has resulted in him becoming hugely fat, like a bloated sausage with a leg and at each corner. His eyes, bloodshot and dreamy, stare straight ahead of his, and his tongue lolled with his jaws. I refers to Mr. Herriot. He is a veterinary surgeon. Read and find out. Is the narrator as rich as Tricky's mistress? How does he treat the dog? Why is he tempted to keep Tricky on as permanent guest? Why does Mr. Pumphrey think the dog's recovery is a triumph of surgery? Let's see. No, the narrator is not as rich as Tricky's mistress. He treats the dog with care and love. He realizes that the dog is not suffering from any major illness, but is just greedy and overfed. He therefore does not overindulge or fuss over him, but treats him like all the other household dogs at the surgery. He makes up a bed for him in a warm, loose box next an eye on him, giving him no food but plenty of water. He then lets him to go out to play and eat with other dogs. He is tempted to keep Tricky on a permanent as a permanent guest because thanks to Tricky he is enjoying a wonderful life with the fresh eggs for breakfast, wine and brandy with were supplied by Mr. Pumphrey for Tricky. She felt that he would need all these things as the vet had said he was Cornwall skin. Eggs would build up his strength. Wine would enrich his blood and the brandy would help him constitution. Not the constitution in political science. Besides, without any medicinal treatment, Tricky's progress was rapid and he was now an accepted member of the gang of household dogs. Mrs. Pumphrey is shocked when she sees Tricky. She thinks that the dog's recovery is a triumph of surgery because earlier the dog had the appearance of bloated sausage with a leg at each corner. It was hugely fat, dull, inactive, and lifeless. His eyes, bloodshot and dreamy, stared straight ahead, and his tongue lolled from his jaws. But after the treatment, he is full of life. active and runs and leaps into the car on Mr. Pumphrey's lap. She is therefore extremely grateful to the vet. Glossary. Sausage means finely minced meat stuffed into long cylindrical cases and divided into small lengths by twisting or tying. Rheumi means a watery discharge from a mucous membrane, especially of the nose or eyes. Listless means lacking energy and enthusiasm. Lumbago means muscular pain in the lower part of back. Regime means prescribed course of exercise and diet. Distraught means extremely worried, surgery, a place where a doctor, dentist, or veterinary surgeon treats patients. Scrimmage means rough or confused struggle. Convalescing means recovery from an illness. Lithe means flexible. Key points. Tricky was a small dog and was excessively loved by his mistress, Mrs. Pumpy. He was greedy and loved food, but no exercise. As a result, he became fat, and Mr. Pumpy believed that he became lazy because he suffered from malnutrition. Mrs. Pumpy was a wealthy woman. She loved her dog too much. She gave him some little extras between meals to build him up: malt, cod liver oil, and a bowl of Horlicks at night. She gave him load to eat but no exercise. Once he became ill and she was worried and made a frantic call to Harriet, who was a vet. James already had given suggestion regarding Tricky's balanced diet, but she never followed it. He was a vet. He was shocked to see Tricky is hugely fat, like a bloated sausage with a leg at each corner. He advised her to cut down on the sweet things. The expected cold came within a few days, and it happened he was called by Mrs. Pumphrey as Tricky refused to eat. He told her that Tricky needed immediate hospitalization for keeping under observation at his surgery for a fortnight. There he gave him food, no medicine, but plenty of water. Gradually, he mixed with other dogs and started playing with them. He had a lot exercise and funds at the surgery. He was completely recovered and transformed into a hard-muscled dog. James Ario treated the dog without medicine or surgery. She was happy and filled with gratitude. She thanked Harriet and said it was a triumph of surgery. Textbook question and answers. Question 1. What kind of person do you think the narrator, a veterinary surgeon, is? Would you say he's a tactful as well as full of common sense? Do you think Tricky was happy to go home? What do you think will happen now? Do you think that this is a real life episode or mere fiction or a mixture of both? Solutions. The narrator, a veterinary surgeon, is a very sensible, practical, and hardworking doctor who treat his animals with care and love. He's good and honest man because although tempted to continue enjoying the luxuries bestowed on him by Mrs. Pumphrey. Once the dog recovered, he called her and told her to take him home. I would say that he is both tactful as well as full of common sense, as he treats the dog with common sense and is tactful in enjoying the pleasures of life during tricky stay. He is an excellent vet who can identify and understand the problems of pets immediately and is able to handle their overindulged owners tactfully. His common sense and concern on seeing Tricky's appearance made him realize that the only way to cure the dog was to take him away from the mistress, control its diet of foods and sweets, and give it plenty of exercise. In this way, he cared the dog and helped it recover. But he also enjoyed the eggs, wine, brandy that Mrs. Pumphrey had brought for the dog and was even tempted to keep Tricky as a permanent guest in order to continue enjoying this lecture. Yes, Tricky was happy to go home. When Tricky saw his mistress, he took off from the vet's arms in a tremendous leap and sailed into her lap. She gave a startled oh and then had to defend herself as he shone over her, licking her face and barking. I think the dog would face the same problem again as the mistress was too protective and caring towards him. She did not realize that her overindulgence and kindness was bad for the dog's health and would ever lead to death of her pet dog that she loved very much. After a while, she would forget how sick the dog was and would go back to feeding and spoiling the dog, and finally, she would have to call for the vet again. I think it's a mixture of both. The wealthy mistress with nothing in life to bother her expect the health of her pet dog, whom she overindulges in and spoils, is very true to life. The very practical, dedicated, and honest vet who immediately detects the problem and with years, the experience is able to handle both the greedy pets and slightly eccentric mistress are also real life situations. However, the luxuries bestowed on the vet for the sake of dog initially when the dog had leave it home and later, especially the wine and brandy scene fixtures, and the sudden recovery of the dog who had reached such a bad state is a bit fictitious. Thus, one can say that story, although extremely humorous, is a mixture of both real life episodes and fiction. Talk about this episode describes the this episode describes the silly behavior of a rich woman who is foolishly indulgent, perhaps because she is lonely. Do you think such people are merely silly, or can their actions cause harm to others? Do you think there are also parents like Mrs. Pumphrey? What would you have done if you were a member of the staff in Mrs. Pumphrey's household, a neighbor? What would your life have been in general? What would have done if you were in narrator's place? So that's all the chapter. If you like the video, please subscribe the channel. Thank you.